Good morning, Zambia. Good morning, Africa. Today, Africa has woken up to the news that the supreme dictator of the kingdom of Eswatini, King Mswati III, has fled the country and his whereabouts are unknown. Mswati has been king of Eswatini from 1986 when he took over from his father. And Mswati has 15 wives, uncountable number of concubines, and about 26 children. The question that we are asking today is that, has the Swazi monarch fallen? Or is simply this another case of him giving room for the state to stabilize things in his kingdom, then he can come back? My name is Mainda Simataa, and I'm going to give you an in-depth analysis of the situation inside Swaziland. Not from my perspective, but from the perspective of my comrades and friends who have contacted this morning inside Swaziland. We are going to hear this from the Swazis themselves, or Mswati, as they call themselves. The questions we are going to consider are, is Mswati really on the run? Has he abdicated the throne? Has the monarch and the system that he has commanded for so many years still loyal to him, or has it fallen? What has caused him to run? And what does all this mean for African countries such as Zambia, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Uganda, to mention but a few, who are also suffering from supreme dictators who have taken it upon themselves to rule forever? The perspective I'm going to be giving you inside about Swaziland is not coming from me. It is coming from a comrade called Abigail Jele, who's inside Swaziland and is currently on the run and in hiding. I could have brought her on here so that she could speak to you, the people of Africa, to give the insight and perspectives of what is really going on. Because like I always tell you, your mainstream media will never tell you the truth at what is happening in this country called Swaziland, or a kingdom if you like. And the reason is simple, because King Mswati, just like any other African leaders at the moment, belong to a club called SADC and AU, where they protect themselves. They control the media. So the mainstream media is just going to tell you, oh, King Mswati allegedly, that's the language they use. King Mswati allegedly flees the country, and it ends there. Why has he fled? They won't tell you. Where has he gone? They won't tell you. Why? You don't get any inside information, but we are here to give you inside information, because you and me, as young Africans, are interested in the liberation of this continent from neocolonialism, from autocrats and all kinds of dictators and despots who have robbed us of our freedom, of our resources, and of the right to determine our destiny. Now, where did all this begin? Yes, today King Mswati is on the run. His location is unknown. And some of you want to know, has he carried along his 15 wives and uncountable concubines and 26 children? Has he fled together with them? I don't know that information, but I'll update you as soon as I know. But that is just trivia. The real question that we must be asking is, where did all this start from? I'll take you back to 8th May. On 8th May, a young man called Tabani Nkomonye, on 8th May this year, a young man, a 25-year-old young man called Tabani Nkomonye, was murdered by police near a district called Nalembi, between Nalembi and Mazini. He was murdered there by police. His car was secretly towed to Mazini police, and his body was thrown somewhere in the bush. Then the police set out a notice of missing person. Imagine, they killed him. Traffic police officers shot him dead, dumped his body somewhere in the bushes, towed his car to the police station, and they put out a public notice to say, missing person. That is what sparked the outrage. That is what sparked the outrage of Mswati, or the people of Swaziland. because such kind of police brutality has been going on since 1973, when democracy was banned in Swaziland. The police brutality has been increasing, and the opulence and the wealth that is being robbed from the Swazi people by King Mswati, his cohorts, and his functionaries, the prime ministers and judges that he appoints, it has become too much. These people have become stupendously wealthy, and the people of Swaziland have become increasingly poor, spectacularly poor. Talk about African poverty, you know what it means. So this was too much for the people of Swaziland. And this uprising began on the day, it didn't really begin on the day that Thabane was killed, but it had been festering, but it exploded on that day because there were protests from the people demanding that the police should find the whereabouts of Thabane. And of course, he was found almost in a decomposed state. And all this was pinned on the brutality of the Mswati regime. That is where it began. And from there, a united front, SUDF, okay, the Swazi United Democratic Front, a coalition of parties, political parties, churches and trade unions, they began to push for reforms through the petitions, through demonstrations. That did not go well down with King Mswati, and he ordered the chief of police to crack down on all protests, to stop all petitions. But the issue only escalated. So yesterday and the week before, those sporadic bouts of violence were too much for King Mswati to take. So he had to leave the country. But we must ask ourselves this question: has King Mswati fled the country, and is Swaziland now a democracy? That's the question that we must be asking. Because the news media, the mainstream news media, has told us that he has fled. Yes, King Mswati has fled. And a picture is being portrayed to the world or to Africa that the Swazi monarchy or the Swazi dictatorial regime has fallen. That is far from the truth. If the Swazi regime has fallen, we wouldn't have had comrades like Abigail Jerry, who I was speaking to this morning from Swaziland. They wouldn't be in hiding. Comrade Abigail Jerry could have been speaking to us live right here on Facebook, giving us information about what is really happening inside Swaziland. But she can't even come online because she's fearing for her life. And she tells me that the police are cracking down on the leaders of this coalition called the Swazi United Democratic Front. They are arresting leaders, they are shooting people, there is all kinds of violence that is taking place, perpetrated by the police. And the army has also been deployed to try and crack down this uprising. That is the thing, that's what is going on in Swaziland. Now tell me, if really King Mswati has abdicated the throne, we are using now English here, abdicated. Abdicated is a term that is used to describe a monarchy or a king who gives up his throne and gives up his power and says, I'm no longer in control of the state. I'm giving either the state control to a republic or a democracy, or for civil society or the citizens to lead themselves or appoint their leaders. It's called abdication. King Mswati, from what we know, hasn't signed any declaration of abdication. He hasn't done what Alexander III of Russia, the Tsar, the last Tsar, did in Russia in the 19th century, where he abdicated the throne and said, I'm going to give up leadership now to a democracy. Sad to say that King Alexander, the last Tsar of Russia, when he abdicated, the entire family, the Romanovs, they were known as the Romanovs, the entire family together with his daughters and his wife were all shot dead. They were lined up and shot dead. It's a scandal of the century. They were lined up and shot dead because the Russians said, we no longer want to have a monarch, whether dead or alive, we don't want them. We want them dead. So you can understand why King Mswati fled the country. Because he knows the history of monarchs. It does not end well for monarchs in most regimes where monarchs fall. Because the anger and the hate that they create inside people is so much that the moment that they lose power, the people pounce on them. It happened in France. It happened in France with Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon Bonaparte was lucky enough, he wasn't lined up and shot, but he was exiled to an island called Elba, somewhere off the coast of Spain, where he died. He lived the rest of his life and died. But it wasn't so for King Louis of France. When King Louis abdicated the throne, he was forced to abdicate by the French revolutionaries. When King Louis of France was forced to abdicate the throne, it didn't end well for him, especially with his wife, Antoinette. They were beheaded. King Louis and his wife, Antoinette, the monarchs of France, were beheaded. And the reason why they were beheaded is because Antoinette, the queen, has been so arrogant that when the people of France were crying for food and bread, she once made a very bad remark, telling them to say they can eat their feces. Or you can eat cake, according to the language she used. She said they can eat cake. When she abdicated, when the husband abdicated, when the monarchy of France fell, they were executed. It does not end well for monarchs, and it does not end well for dictators. Look at Hitler. Hitler committed suicide. He didn't wait for the allied armies of Europe, of UK, and the United States to pounce on him. He just committed suicide. So you understand why King Mswati has fled. But the question is, has the Mswati regime fallen? To understand if the Mswati regime has fallen or is intact, you have to consider what it is. What is meant when you say a monarchy has fallen, or a regime has fallen, or a dictatorship has come to an end. These people control the state. The monarchy controls the state as well as the president who is elected controls the state. They are in supreme control of the state. And the state is about controlling the judiciary, controlling the police, controlling the revenues and finances of a country, controlling the military, and controlling the media. So the question we have to ask ourselves, is Mswati still in charge of the government, the bureaucracy? Is he still in charge of the courts? Is he still in charge of the military? Is he still in charge of the police? Is he still in charge of the diamond-rich revenues of his country? And the question is, as we speak right now, the answer is absolutely yes. Mswati is still in control. Wherever he has flown to, he's still controlling the nation by remote control. So by no means, the regime has by no means fallen. This morning, a friend of mine, Nawastali, tagged me in a post where he was saying the regime of Swaziland has fallen not because of people who are Facebooking, not because of people who went to vote, but it has fallen because of the activism and the revolutionary attitude of the people of Swaziland who went out to protest on the streets. I agree. I agree to say that this change, or seeming change, has been brought about by the activism of the people themselves, not through the ballot box, okay, not through Facebook. But of course, Facebook is being used to communicate. But I agree with him to say that the revolutionary impotence is always driven by the people. But the regime has not fallen. Because, like I told you, King Mswati has not abdicated. So those are some of the things that we have to know. The abdication of a king is what spells out whether a regime or a monarch has fallen. King Mswati is the last monarch reigning here in Africa. Nowhere else in Africa do we have kings. We only have dictators now. And I know Zambians are so interested in this story. Are so interested in this story of King Mswati fleeing the country, because we also want our own dictator to leave the country. We want our own dictator to leave the country. But we are a democracy. So we've decided to say we will make him leave through the ballot. And it's not too far away. It's only 12 August. So that is part of what I wanted to share with you concerning the issue of Mswati, King Mswati fleeing Swaziland, fleeing the country. The monarch and supreme dictator of Swaziland has fled his country. Of course, he has fled for his safety, but he has not given up the throne. I repeat, King Mswati has not given up the throne. He's still in charge of the state. And I've told you to say that I've communicated with people inside Swaziland, comrades like Abigail Jere, who I spent 6 months with in the forests of Mpumalanga in South Africa a few years ago, when we were training on revolutionary warfare as well as political education. How do we win a revolution? I spent a good deal amounts with her. She told me the story of her people, how they've been struggling since 1973 to remove the monarch. And it appears to say that they are very close to that threshold. They are very close to that goal of turning Swaziland into a democracy so that the people of Swaziland can be free to choose their leader and determine their own destiny. And the message that I have for the people of Swazi, to Comrade Abigail, to the Swazi United Democratic Front, is that please do not relent in putting pressure on the government, on the state that King Mswati has built, on the functions of the state. Do not give up on pressuring the remaining henchmen of Mswati to give up power, secede, and let democracy take its place. You are very close, but you are not quite there, because they have sent soldiers and police on you. Hold your ground, keep resisting, keep pushing for reform. You have come this far, and you are almost there. Africa is with you, Zambia is with you. We also have our own dictators whom we don't want, and we are going to get rid of them via the ballot. But for you, you don't have the ballot because political parties are banned. Basically, they are banned, and that's what we are fighting for, to reinstate political parties so that you can vote. So for you, voting is not an option. The streets are your option. Your revolution will be carried out on the streets. Our revolution in Zambia will be carried out through the ballot. Our struggle is the same. We are one Africa. We are united Africa. We are pursuing the same Pan-African goal for liberty, for change, for opportunities of gain and wealth for our people so that they can live better lives. Thank you very much. Aluta continua, comrades. Keep the fight burning.